famous and prominent self-financing college affiliated to Kannur University. And we are having UG and PG courses. And we started our BSc in 2002. And our MSc course we have started in 2005. Now around 15 batches have completed their courses successfully. So this is about our institution. It's for the notice of our chief guest. And my duty entrusted on me is to welcome all the participants to this national level seminar. First of all, I express my gratitude to Dr. Sarika, who is a young scientist at Kerala Biotechnology Commission. And I express my gratitude for accepting our invitation to deliver a talk in our department. And though she's not acquainted to me and I have not met her yet, I know that she is a young scientist with a high profile and it needs time to introduce her. So a detailed introduction will be given after this by my colleague Shiji, Mrs. Shiji. So I think I will move on to my duty vested on me. I wholeheartedly welcome Dr. Sarika to this seminar and also express my gratitude for being with us and joining with us in right time. In the name of our department, I welcome ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
And I also welcome all the participants, those who include our students and those who are from outside the college. I welcome all the participants and all my colleagues. Once again, I welcome all to this enlightening program. And I think that's enough from my part. And I invite Mrs. Shiji to give an introduction about our chief guest. Thank you. Shiji ma'am.
Yes, sir. A very warm welcome to one and all. Today, we are presenting a talk on the topic antibiotic resistance, challenges and future perspectives. We have here with us Dr. Sarika AR, scientist, Kerala Biotechnology Commission. Dr. Sarika AR completed her PG in microbiology from Shivanti Adityanar College, MPhil in microbial technology, and PhD in microbiology from MS University, Tamil Nadu. She has worked as guest faculty in the Department of Microbiology, Government Women's College Trivandrum, and is guest faculty in the Department of Biotechnology, Kerala University, and is currently a scientist at the Kerala State Council for Science, Technology and Environment. She is a member of National Academy of Biological Sciences and Kerala Academy of Sciences and has won Jawaharlal Nehru Memorial Doctoral Fellowship for pursuing PhD during the year 2009. And she also has several national and international publications to her credit. I take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Sarika AR to present the talk. Over to Kavita ma'am for the video clips.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So now I am hand over to Sarika ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Kavita, thank you, sir, and all
Thank you, ma'am.
all the organizers at Sir Syed College for giving a wonderful introduction and for having invited me for this presentation. Thank you so much. And let me share my presentation.
Yeah, sure, madam.
Okay. Somebody else is presenting it.
All others can mute their mic. All others can mute their mic. Only ma'am will be talking. So now you can all mute your mic.
Ma'am, any difficulty means shall I share the PPT?
No, I'll just try.
Okay, okay, ma'am, okay.
Is it visible?
Yes, but PPT is not visible, ma'am.
PPT.
Okay, no.
No.
No, ma'am, no.
The screen is not facilitated, ma'am.
Okay. It's not visible, right?
Yes, yes,
Shall I
ma'am.
try? Is it
Shall I?
visible?
No, just now it came and disappeared.
Okay, I'll just try once more. Sorry.
It's okay, no problem, ma'am.
Uh,
Okay, now visible.
Now visible?
No, not yet.
Not it.
Now your screen is okay, ma'am. Can't ma'am.
Okay. Shall I make it full screen?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Now is it visible, sir?
yeah, sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry for the delay. And
No, it's okay,
once again, I thank all the organizers for having invited me. And right now, we are amidst a pandemic which was caused by coronavirus, the COVID-19 pandemic. And we are passing through the most worst stage of the COVID pandemic. And the cases are, as we all are seeing, the cases are increasing day by day. Almost we have reached the peak of infectivity. And also this particular time has seen a shifting of the interaction and the learning platforms to online. And maybe because of the reason why I'm here today with you right now. And it's also the time for us to leap back into the past, where we have made, where mankind has made so much of inventions and discoveries in terms of medicine. Each time the world see a pandemic or a outbreak of some infectious diseases, new and new strategies were devised, new technologies were made, and that has led to, now that we are confident that we can control such kind of things in some ways or the other. And one of the developments that mankind has seen is the antibiotic development, antibiotic discovery in the early 1920s. I mean, late 1920s, 28 it was discovered in first. So antibiotics were used by mankind from the 1940s itself. The penicillin, large-scale production of penicillin was made and made for human use in the 1940s. But now we are more concerned about the antibiotics right now. The reason is antibiotic resistance, and many bacteria have becoming resistant to the antibiotics, and many illnesses have no treatment strategies right now. So that's the reason why we are more concerned about antibiotics and the resistance right now. So I'll be dealing here today the antibiotic resistance and what the challenges they are posing and what would be the future perspectives on that. And as I already told you, antibiotics were the most significant development in the history of medicine. And as I told, it was of use from 1940s. The natural antibiotics were of use from 1940s, and it's current of much interest during the recent times. Antibiotics are the nothing but the natural substances produced by bacteria or the other microorganisms. And they are powerful medicines that treat bacterial infections and work by either killing bacteria or preventing the growth and reproduction of bacteria. So they have two strategies. Like one, either they can be bactericidal, in which they can kill the bacteria, or they can prevent the growth and reproduction of bacteria. In that, they are bacteriostatic. So why the microbes produce antibiotics? So in a particular niche, in a particular environment, the microbes have got an advantage of competing with other organisms for food and water and the other limited resources available in that particular habitat. So in order for that, they'll be producing some metabolites to outcompete with the other organisms in that particular niche. So one of the strategy would be the antibiotic, the secondary metabolite produced by this organism, which kills of other organism and limits the competition. So how do this antibiotic work? They take the difference between the structure of the bacterial cell wall. As students of microbiology, you'll be knowing about the different structure of the bacterial cell, two different kinds of bacteria based on the staining. That is the bacteria gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. And this antibiotic, they work by using this particular strategy they can prevent the bacterial cells from multiplying so that the bacterial populations remain the same. That I already told, that is, they can be bacteriostatic in a sense that they can prevent the bacteria from multiplying, allowing the host defense mechanism to fight the infection or to kill the bacteria, or that means they can be bactericidal, for example, stopping the mechanism responsible for their cell wall. So an antibiotic can also be classified according to the range of pathogens against which it is effective. So for example, a class of antibiotic called the beta-lactams, in which the penicillin is included, that will destroy only a few species, and that class of antibiotic belongs to a narrow spectrum antibiotic. And the other class of antibiotics, like the tetracycline, is effective against a wide range of organisms, and they are known to be as broad spectrum antibiotic. So this is, shows the difference in the cell wall of the gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. Gram-positive bacteria composing of a thick multi-layered peptidoglycan sheath outside of the cell membrane. And again, the teichoic acids are linked to it, embedded in the peptidoglycan. Then again, the lipoid teichoic acids are present. But compared to this, the gram-negative cell wall has less peptidoglycan and more of lipoproteins. The peptidoglycan, very thin layer of peptidoglycan, and also the porins are present that allow the passage of small hydrophilic molecules across the membranes. And how antibiotics prevent the cell machinery from working. So basic mechanism is either by disrupting the essential processes or structure in the bacterial cell. So what are the targets means? They either can target the cell wall or the plasma membrane that surround the bacterial cell. And the machineries that make the nucleic acids, RNA and DNA, by blocking the DNA synthesis or RNA synthesis, or the machinery that produce protein by inhibiting the protein synthesis by binding to the ribosome and its associated proteins. So antibiotics, basically they fit in their target proteins like a key in a lock. So into a glance into the history of these antibiotics, much before the discovery of penicillin, I mean 2 decades back itself, scientists were involved in finding out some compounds which can be effective against infectious agents. So in 1888, German scientist Emmerich and Lowe, they found that Pseudomonas aeruginosa produced a substance in the test tube known as the pyocyanase, which killed a dangerous bacteria, that is the Staphylococcus, a gram-positive bacteria. When tried in patient, it was unsuccessful. So, but toxic also. So hence, it could not be administered through the mouth, or oral administration was not possible. So it was used for 30 more years as a topical skin antibiotic. And again, in 1910, Paul Ehrlich, again a German chemist, he took a different approach and developed a chemical compound called salva. Hello? Yes.
Madam, 1 minute. I want to clear one.
Okay.
You have two screens. Many of them are watching by your one screen that they are telling they didn't see the PPT.
Fine.
Just you can tell them that you have two screens. Sarika Air is having two screens. In one screen you are saying madam. In the other screen you can see the PPT. So you watch the PPT. You watch the PPT. Okay, ma'am. You can continue.
Okay. Is it clear now?
Oh yeah.
Or can you see, sir?
Yeah, we can see. Some people telling they are seeing you.
Yeah, actually in Google Meet we'll have two presentation modes. One, the speaking mode, and the other presentation mode. That will be there, no, sir?
Many of them are watching you only. They don't know the second screen is there.
Yeah. Those who could not see the PPT, you can just pin the presentation that in the right side, people, there will be Sharika AR bracket presentation. So you can pin that.
Okay, ma'am, you can continue.
It's okay, sir. Can you see the PPT now?
Yeah. We are seeing already.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So in 1910, that Paul Ehrlich, a German chemist, he, as I already told, he took a different approach from the conventional technique that already the German scientists Emmerich and Lowe were doing. And they developed a chemical compound called Selvarsen, which is an arsenic geranamine. That's a treatment effective against syphilis, a very common disease that time caused by Treponema pallidum. And that was also toxic, which represented the first partial success in the syphilis treatment. So in spite of being toxic, they were used because it was successful against the syphilis treatment. And that started a trend for the chemotherapy, the age of chemotherapy. So from then onwards, there was an instant search for the compound, a magic bullet, the so-called magic bullet. The concept is to get rid of an infecting organism from the body without harming the patients. And the concept, which is still pertinent right now. And as I already told in 1928, that the discovery of penicillin was made. And that heralded the age of antibiotics, the golden age of antibiotics. Alexander Fleming, by accident, and after coming from a vacation, he was actually working on a natural compound from human tears that had antibacterial properties called lysozyme, and he could not succeed as an antibiotic. Lysozyme could not succeed as an antibiotic, but it shown human can produce also an antibacterial substance. And while he was working on this particular concept, and after vacation, when he came back, he saw a plate, swabbed with Staphylococcus aureus that was inhibited by a mold growing in the adjacent area. He demonstrated that particular mold to be the Penicillium fungus, and the compound which was produced from that particular fungus was called as penicillin. And it took another 10 to 15 years before the full advantage could be taken of this discovery, and the penicillin's first human use could be made only in 1941, when large scale of production was made by Ernst Chain and Howard Florey. And a glance into the different classes of antibiotics. We have the beta-lactams in which the penicillin, amoxicillin, flucloxacillin, cephalosporins are all included. And its mode of action is by inhibiting the bacterial cell wall synthesis. And even before the discovery of this beta-lactams, the wide use of beta-lactam antibiotics in 1941. In 1930 itself, an antibiotic was commercialized, which was called as the sulfonamides. And its mode of action is to kill. It is just in this picture, what I have shown, that in light green colors are the bacteriostatic agents, and the dark greens are the bactericidal agents. So the picture I've taken from compoundchem.com, thanks to them. And as I told, the sulfonamides, they were the first commercial antibiotics which were of human use. And the next class of antibiotics is the aminoglycosides. That is a family of around 20 amino acids, all contain the amino sugar substructures, which constitute the streptomycin, neomycin, kanamycin, and paromycin. Their mode of action is inhibiting the protein synthesis. And then the tetracyclines, which came into being from the late 1940s, which become less popular due to development of resistance earlier itself. And the mode of action is to inhibit the synthesis of proteins by bacteria, preventing the growth. So then glycoproteins and glycopeptides, then constituting the vancomycin, teicoplanin, and mode of action by inhibiting the cell wall synthesis. And then macrolides, second most prescribed antibiotics right now. As examples are erythromycin, clarithromycin. They also inhibits the protein synthesis. And then quinolones, which also developed resistance rapidly, include the ciprofloxacin, trovafloxacin, etc. They also inhibit the DNA synthesis and interfere with DNA replication and transcription. And we have seen in 1960s enzamycins, then late streptogramins, in 1980 oxazolidones, and now the lipopeptides, which includes the drug daptomycin. And basic mechanism is that antibiotic targets the essential bacterial processes, either the cell wall, plasma membrane, ribosome, metabolic pathways, the folic acid synthesis, then DNA synthesis, RNA synthesis. So an important quality of the antimicrobial drug is the selective toxicity, meaning that it kills or inhibits the growth of microbial targets. And most antibiotic drugs currently in clinical use are the antibacterial because the prokaryotic greater variety of unique targets for selected cells. So, but it does not, as we are seeing it right now for the COVID-19 case, it is not at all effective for viruses. Antibiotics are tuned against bacteria only. And each class of antibacterial drugs has a unique mode of action, the way in which a drug affects the microbes at the cellular level. So mechanism of action of penicillin is that they inhibit the cell wall biosynthesis by preventing the peptidoglycan from cross-linking properly in the last stage of the bacterial cell wall synthesis. And we have a weakened cell wall structure, causing them to lyse and leading to the cell death. So the structure is that it has a unique beta-lactam ring structure 4-membered beta-lactam ring, and this structural moiety is essential for penicillin's antibacterial activity. So beta-lactam ring is a part of the core structure of several antibiotic families, the principal ones being the penicillin, cephalosporin, carbapenems, monobactam, etc. Beta-lactam antibiotics inhibit bacteria by binding covalently to the penicillinase binding proteins in the cytoplasm, and they target the protein, catalyze the synthesis of peptidoglycan that form the cell wall of the bacteria. So alterations of this protein can lead to beta-lactam antibiotic resistance. And this is the structure of the beta-lactam ring, and this particular antibiotic, it binds to the cross-linking enzymes and preventing it from doing the cross-linking, and thus leading to a weakened structure, collapse of the cell. And next we have the sulfonamides having sulfonide group, which were of use from the 1930s. And the derivatives of the sulfonamide drugs over the next few decades form one of the key foundations of antimicrobial therapy. And the drugs are being continued even today as trimethoprim sulfadoxazole drugs. And the mechanism of action is that this particular sulfonamide, they are the structural analogs of the para-aminobenzoic acid, which is essential for the folic acid synthesis. And it inhibits the folate synthesis and formation of folate get inhibited. And this folic acid is particularly important for the DNA synthesis. So the complete pathway is inhibited, and so that is the mechanism of action. So again, aminoglycosides, there are natural and a group of 20 different antibiotics. They are natural or can be semi-synthetic and effective against gram-negative bacteria. So far, we have seen the antibiotics effective against gram-positive bacteria. And the first member of this particular family this particular class was the streptomycin, which was discovered in 1943, which was produced by soil actinomycetes. And they are of interest because they were effective against Mycobacterium tuberculosis, the organism which is involved in causing the tuberculosis. And that inhibits by the protein synthesis, binds to the 30th subunit of ribosome, leading to an incorrect reading of the mRNA, and proteins are synthesized erroneously. So the first broad spectrum antibiotic which was discovered was in 1946, the chloramphenicol. Then came the tetracycline, erythromycin. They were all broad spectrum antibiotics effective against gram-positive and gram-negative. So a summary on to the mode of action of different antibiotic. Those that inhibit the cell wall were the cycloserine, vancomycin. So this particular picture characterize different antibiotics based on their mode of action and not based on their class. So the cell wall, those antibiotics which inhibit the cell wall include penicillins, and then cephalosporin, monobactam, vancomycin, and some inhibit the folic acid metabolism, include the sulfonamides, trimethoprim, and cell wall structure inhibiting in antibiotics like the polymyxin, daptomycin. Then again, cell DNA gyrase, the enzyme which is essential for the unzipping of the DNA, that is also inhibited by the quinolones like nalidixic acid and ciprofloxacin, novobiocin. And RNA elongation is inhibited by actinomycin. The DNA-directed RNA polymerase enzyme inhibited by rifampicin, streptovaricin, and the antibiotics binding to the 50S ribosomal protein and inhibiting the protein synthesis are the erythromycin, chloramphenicol, clindamycin, lincomycin, and then some bind to 30S inhibitors like tetracycline, spectinomycin, streptomycin, gentamicin, kanamycin, amikacin, and nitrofurans. And some antibiotics also inhibit the synthesis by binding to the tRNA like mupirocin and puromycin. And coming to methicillin, methicillin was a synthetic derivative of penicillin, and it was produced in the late 1950s. And it was actually developed as an antibiotic called the penicillinase-resistant penicillin, which means that by that time in 1950s, many of the bacteria has developed resistance to the antibiotic penicillin by producing an protein called as the beta-lactamase, which is otherwise called as penicillinase. So in order to overcome that, this particular antibiotic was developed, the methicillin. And it contained a modification to the original penicillin structure that made it resistant to a bacterial enzyme called penicillinase. And this enzyme, it is produced by the most strains of Staphylococcus and disrupts certain types of penicillin by hydrolyzing. So those strains which are resistant to the antibiotics, they hydrolyze the beta-lactam ring by this beta-lactamase enzyme. And this particular beta-lactam ring that is central to the antimicrobial activity of these drugs. And emergence of the methicillin-resistant strains of bacteria appeared in 1960s and eventually rendered the drug useless for clinical purposes. Resistance to methicillin is believed to have resulted from a bacterial acquisition of a gene that encodes a protein capable of binding this drug and preventing the drug from killing the organism. So the bacteria acquired a gene that is capable of encoding a protein which binds with the drug and thus preventing this drug from getting into its action. And today, a strain known as the methicillin-resistant, everybody might have heard about the methicillin-resistant Staph aureus, which is, globally, found now, that is pandemic, causing infection in thousands of hospital patients and healthy individuals worldwide each year. So when seeing the discovery from 1928 with the discovery of penicillin, then 30 to 40 the sulfur drugs, 40 to 50 aminoglycosides, 50 to 60 macrolides, glycoproteins, peptides, 1960 to 70s quinolones, streptogramins, 80 to 90 lipopeptides. You can see from here also this chart shows 1920s to 2010. If after 1987, there is the discovery is void and not a single antibiotic was naturally synthesized or developed even after that. So what about the effects of antibiotics on viruses? Antibiotics kill the viruses because viruses have, does not kill the viruses, just does no activity against viruses because viruses have different structures and it replicates in a different way than bacteria. As I had already told, antibiotics target the bacterial cell machinery, the cell wall, the protein, etc. So antibiotics work by targeting the growth machinery in bacteria and not the viruses to kill or inhibit those particular bacteria. When you think about it structurally, it makes sense that the antibiotic could not work to kill a virus with a completely different set of replicating machinery. So coming to antibiotic resistance, it happens when the germs no longer respond to the antibiotics designated to kill them. So main cause of this antibiotic resistance is its overuse. When we use antibiotics, some bacteria die, but resistant bacteria can survive and even multiply. So the overuse of these antibiotics make resistant bacteria more common, and more we use this antibiotic, more chances are the bacteria to have become more resistant to them. So the reasons for the resistance causing is that mainly due to the overprescription of antibiotics and patients not finishing either, if they are at all prescribed, the patients are not finishing the entire antibiotic course, and due to overuse of antibiotics in livestock and fish farming, and poor infection control in the healthcare settings, poor hygiene and sanitation, absence of new antibiotic being discovered. So these are all factors that contribute to resistance of the bacteria to these antibiotics. So in this chart, you can see the discovery of antibiotic versus the date of resistance identified. The first antibiotic-resistant bacteria was identified in the 1940s, and then soon after the discovery, the resistant strains developed and 30 years since a new class of antibiotics was last introduced. So antibiotic resistance and the superbugs, I've already told the reasons for development of superbugs, the use and misuse of antibiotics, treatment failures, more severe and long-lasting diseases, increased hospitalization rates, more deaths, higher cost to society. And again, antibiotic resistance are becoming a growing international public health problem now. The magnitude of the problem is that, in fact, the more than 25,000 people in case of the European Union die each year from infections caused by the antibiotic-resistant bacteria. And any kind of antibiotic use in people, animals, or plants can promote the development and spread of antibiotic resistance. Also, the antibiotic resistant does not respect, so they doesn't have any geographical or biological borders. The use of antibiotics in one sector can affect the spread of resistance in others too. So the a picture from World Health Organization, a report from World Health Organization showing the mortality and economic impact predicted. That is, in 2050, up to 10 million cases of deaths per year can occur due to antibiotic-resistant bacteria. 2 to 3.5% reduction of GDP can be caused, and total global cost of up to USD $100 billion can be attributed by this. And coming to death attributed to the antimicrobial resistance by 2050, it is estimated that about 10 million deaths in 2050 can be due to, as I already told. And this is comparatively more than the other causes of death like cancer, cholera, diabetes, diarrheal disease, measles, road traffic accidents, tetanus. So comparatively very huge. And come the case of India. India is one of the largest consumers of antibiotics worldwide, and antibiotic sales continue to increase rapidly in India too. So a paper from Dikshit et al. In 2019 from in Indian Journal of Community Medicine shows that even there is decrease in the communicable disease with the advent of antibiotics, but there is no decrease in the use of antibiotics as could be seen in the graph from 2000 to 2050. And India carries one of the largest burdens of drug-resistant pathogens worldwide, the highest burden of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, alarmingly high resistance among gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria, even to newer antibiotics such as carbapenems and piropenem. Since introduced, so this was introduced in 2010. Soon after its introduction, the resistant strains developed. And again, regional studies report high antimicrobial resistance among pathogens such as Salmonella typhi, Shigella, Pseudomonas, and Acinetobacter. Annually, more than about 50,000 newborns are estimated to die from sepsis, the presence of bacteria in blood, and due to pathogens resistant to first-line antibiotics. While extract population burden estimates are not available, the neonates and the elderly, as you can see in the case of COVID-19, the elderly people are more affected. So here also it's thought to be the worst affected. And 2 million deaths are projected to occur in India due to antimicrobial resistance by the year 2050. So emergence of the enzyme, the New Delhi metallo-beta-lactamase in 2008, that rapidly spread to other countries. So this is the case for our country. And what are the mechanisms for the antibiotic resistance? Is that either they can be intrinsic or a natural resistance, in the sense that the penicillin, it is estimated, rather proved that penicillin-resistant genes were found in the bacteria much before the discovery of penicillin. And scientists were able to analyze the gene sequences from the permafrost about 30,000 years back, and they could identify the gene sequences coding for the penicillin resistance. And antibiotic, so we can confirm by say that antibiotic resistance is a natural phenomenon. And then it can also get acquired from the other methods too, either through mutation, genetically a mutation, or through plasmids. So the natural mechanisms of antibiotic resistance being the mechanism either through enzymatic inactivation of antibiotics. So an existing, as you could see, an existing bacterial enzyme is modified to interact with an antibiotic in order to make them inactive towards bacteria. As I already told in the case of methicillin, that an existing bacterial enzyme is modified to interact with an antibiotic to make them inactive towards bacteria and prevent them from binding to. So that is the antibiotic will not be having a target for binding and hence preventing the antibiotic activity. So this is due to the transfer of antibiotic resistant genes carried on plasmids. The most significant examples are beta-lactamase enzymes, which hydrolyze the beta-lactams like penicillin and cephalosporin. And again, the extrusion, drug extrusion by the efflux pumps. So you can see in this picture that there is overexpression of the particular pumps, efflux pumps, whereby the antibiotics are being effluxed or uh, from the inside of the inside to outside, or it prevent the drug accumulation within the bacteria. So this is the second mode of action. And then they are also by the decreased uptake by changing in the outer permeability or by presence of porins. So the porins can get altered and preventing the coming in of the antibiotics from the outside environment. So these variations interfere with the entrance of the antibiotics. And again, the modification of the drug target in that, these penicillins, in the case of penicillin, it targets the cell wall machinery, as I told, in the cell. So in case of the resistant cell, the change in the DNA sequence that result in the change in the antibiotic binding proteins, so that the penicillin will no longer be able to bind to that particular protein and leading to resistance. And then acquired resistance, the mutation. Mutation, as already know, it's a sudden change in the DNA structure of a structure or gene. It occurs at a frequency of 1 per 10 millions. And for the case of Mycobacterium tuberculosis, leprae, MRSA, that is the methicillin-resistant Staph aureus, the organisms were mutated to become to gain resistance. Often the mutants have reduced susceptibility. And the plasmids, as you know, they are the extra chromosomal genetic elements. They can replicate independently and freely in the cytoplasm. And they carry the resistant genes. They can be readily transferred from one R plasmid to the other. So the transfer mechanisms by either by conjugation, by the transduction or transformation. And the transfer of R genes can also take place either through transposons, which are the jumping genes present in the bacteria, or by integrons, they are the large mobile DNA sequences which carry the multiple drug resistance, and each integron is packed with multiple gene cassettes and consisting of resistant gene attached to the small. So when these genes encode several bacterial functions, including the resistance and virulence, and cannot within the gene, but cannot promote self-transfer. So how antibiotic resistance spreads is that the antibiotics present in the natural environment, as I already told, the antibiotics are not used only by the humans. It is given widely as an animal fodder or feeds, and also along with the fertilizers for improving the crop productivity and all. So when the animals get antibiotics, they develop resistance in their guts. And again, they are used when a man takes an antibiotic, he develops resistance in his gut. So this animal, the antibiotic resistant bacteria present in the gut, they are capable of transfer through the fertilizers or water containing animal feces and drug resistant bacteria for when applied onto the food crops. These may get transferred to the human gut. And also when consuming the human meat in which the resistant strains are present, they get. And again, in the hospital settings, this antibiotic resistant strain, there are chances that they get into the healthcare workers, like the doctors and nurses. And from there, so there is continuous transfer of these particular antibiotic resistant genes continuously. So when coming to resistant pipeline converge, like if in 1930s, the sulfonamides were discovered, and in 1940s, it was found to be resistant. And penicillin was widely used from the 1940s, and the resistance was noticed in the late 1940s, like 1947 or 48. And for each antibiotic, soon after the discovery, the resistant strains noticed. And even when you can see the 2005, the derived antibiotics like the daptomycin, the lipoprotein, these antibiotics gained resistance soon after, even 2 or 3 years after its its use. So as bacterial infections grow more resistant to the antibiotics, the companies are pulling out of antibiotic research. And for companies, this antibiotic research are not found to be suitable, and fewer new antibiotics. So as I told, after 1980s or 2000, no antibiotic research is being carried out by companies. Earlier in 1990, it was 18, and 2010, it is now 4. So now, if you take the case of now, probably no company would have been doing this antibiotic new search for new antibiotics. And the challenges are that the emergence of the antibiotic-resistant pathogens and the limited progress made in the developing new and potent antibiotics, and again and again the same antibiotic is being discovered, and hence the lack of interest in having new antibiotics. And the reasons are, as I told, overuse, misuse, and development of new emerging diseases, which led the pharmaceutical companies from pulling out their research, and they don't have any profitability, and a reduction in their antibiotic programs. So this we have already. So what will be the newer approaches? As more antibiotics are rendered ineffective by drug-resistant bacteria, focus must be shifted towards some alternative therapies, not just focusing on to finding out new antibiotic from the environment or from bacteria. Although several alternative exist in nature, the challenge is to implement them in clinical use. So all such approaches are in an infant stage, and advancements within the biotechnology, genetic engineering, synthetic chemistry, they have opened up new avenues towards the search for therapies that can substitute for the antibiotics. So as bacteria grow resistant to conventional antibiotics, alternatives are being investigated, including the antibodies, then probiotics, bacteriophages, antimicrobial peptides, and they're currently undergoing clinical trials. So antibodies, they are highly specific, and there is reduced chances of bacteria getting resistant to them, and they're hence making them more attractive candidates, but they are expensive. But alternative therapeutic agents. And again, bacteriophages, they have been used for therapy in some parts of the world by the name phage therapy, the therapeutic use of lytic bacteriophages to treat the pathogenic bacterial infections. And the antimicrobial peptides have long been considered as potential replacements for antibiotics, but with limited success. And synthetic peptides and synthetic membrane active agents, they can herald issues. So works still on. Probiotics are already in practice for enhancing the human microbiota, the organisms which are generally considered as safe organisms, which are, we consume it through as a nutraceutical or whatever. The use of oligonucleotides for silencing the resistant genes and resensitizing the resistant bacteria to antibiotic. So that is yet another approach, and still in the research stage. So as I already told, the alternatives being the use of probiotics, the naturally occurring antimicrobial agents like the phytomedicine, plant-based remedies, essential oil, nutraceuticals, then bacteriophage therapy, I already mentioned, medicinal plants. So antimicrobial activity of plant extract having many applications, and they are used in the raw and processed food preservation, pharmaceuticals over alternative medicines. And over 2,000, an estimate says that over 2,700 plants are active against even Staphylococcus aureus and MRSA. So, summarizing on to the alternatives of antibiotics, you have antibodies, probiotics, and the expected date of registration are already registered. The probiotics license, wild-type bacteriophages, engineered bacteriophages, immune stimulation, vaccines, antimicrobial peptides, post-defense, so and so. And the approach of using the antibiotics have some side effects like toxicity, resistance, allergic reactions. Some antibiotics are toxic. They develop resistance, and bacteria develop resistance, allergic reactions, then suppressing the immune system. Many antibiotics, they are capable of destructing the beneficial gut flora. And again, there is overgrowth of pathogen, and they are less effective over time. So it's necessary to have a different approach, to think out of box, to have a targeted approach. And newer approaches focus on to the metabolites from bacteria itself, the antimicrobial peptides, which I've already mentioned. Most bacteria employ the narrow spectrum toxins to fend off invaders or competitors. An approach to harness the potential of there should be an approach to harness the less exploited microbes. For example, the microbes present in the extreme environments, in the case of high temperature, marine environment. So they are to be harnessed much. So the antimicrobial peptides, they are evolutionarily conserved peptides with broad antibacterial activity spectrum. And in case of higher organisms, they contribute to innate immunity and the part of first-line defense against harmful microorganisms. And they are again a ribosomally synthesized primary metabolite found among all classes of life, ranging from prokaryotes to humans. So you have prokaryotic antimicrobial peptide as well as the eukaryotic strains. Then eukaryotics peptides smaller in size, they are of very small size, ranging from 20 to 60 amino acids. They are cationic and amphiphilic or hydrophobic. So what are the similarities with the eukaryotic and prokaryotic AMPs, antimicrobial peptides, are that both are small in size and mode of action is almost the same. But the differences are that there are differences in the inhibitory spectrum. While prokaryotic have a narrow inhibitory spectrum focused towards the specific bacteria, this will be having a broad inhibitory spectrum, the eukaryotic counterparts. And also regarding the specificity, they may differ, and also the potency of the antimicrobial peptides. So bacteriocin, I would like to mention because I've been doing this research for quite a long time. The bacteriocins, the antibiotics, antibacterial peptides of the lactic acid bacteria or the gram-positive or any bacteria, and they are heat stable secreted peptides. They are gene encoded and have got a narrow inhibitory spectrum. And the important thing to be remembered is that the producer strains are immune to their own antibiotic and their own bacteriocins, and it can be hence it can be employed for applications. So the antibiotic resistant problem, coming to the strategies to solve this problem, cannot be solved all on a day, can only be managed. So domesticated animals gets infected, as I told. Agricultural use of antibiotic is to be limited. Antibiotics are used for promotional and prophylactic purposes in food animals, for a broader and less targeted treatment in aquaculture. So everywhere this is being used in domestication of animal, in agricultural use, in aquatic feeds, whatever the case may be. So there we need to have a judicious use of antibiotics. It can only contain or manage the antibiotic resistance. So it cannot eliminate the possibility of antibiotic development, as resistance is an evolutionary process. So an important approach is to have One Health approach, which is an approach to design and implement programs or policies, legislation, research in multiple sectors, communicate and work together to achieve better public health outcomes. So all should sit together, which including the food safety, control of zoonosis. So combating the antibiotic resistance, this approach can be particularly useful in all these areas. So current One Health approach to antibiotic microbial resistance focus primarily on reduction in the antibiotic use in food animals. So as I've already told, examples of how antibiotic resistance affects the humans, animals, and the environment is that when some types of antibiotic resistant germs can spread from person to person and from animals to person to person, and everywhere this it so happens that the resistant genes are getting transferred. So that we need to have, WHO recently published new guidelines to limit the antibiotic use in healthy food animals. And we need to have communication, collaboration, public engagement for engaging partners, developing strategies to prevent the emergence and spread of resistance, recognizing the gaps that have existed and working to fill them. So the strategies should be to develop our representatives from these worlds. All should work together and to have an integrative approach, leveraging the resources of the current system and networks, and engaging persons with expertise from the environmental and wildlife sectors, which have often been overlooked. So with the advent of technological advancements, we have seen the technology being, so a couple of days back, the Nobel Prize for the chemistry was awarded to two ladies for their discovery of, for their invention of the molecular scissors, powerful molecular tool for cutting the genomes, or powerful molecular scissors. And so actually they were looking for an organism they were studying with the Streptococcus organism to have an antibiotic-like thing in Streptococcus. So that study has led them to yet another discovery, which is of immense applications right now. So such kind of technological advancements, like I've already mentioned, the bacteriophage therapy, antivirulent strategies, vaccination, livestock breeding, microbiota modulation. So these all advancements and put together can be used in One Health approach to improve the judicious usage of antibiotics in years to come. So with this, let me conclude my presentation, and thank you so much for having given this wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was very nice and very informative, and then a lot of information. Particularly, I think our PG students who are studying this.
Yeah, she told. Actually, the students are microbiology students are here, no, sir?
Yes, microbiology students.
Yes.
They have a module regarding this antibiotics and its resistance and properties.
Okay.
So participants, if you have anything to ask, madam, you want to clear anything, you can ask now. Participants, any participants?
Sir, I think there is no question from the participant side, sir.
Okay. It's a research department, right, sir?
It's a we have UG and PG departments. PG departments, PG research actually is part of PG project only. We are having research. That's all.
Okay. No other research. Recognized research lab of Kannur University, not like that.
No, not like that.
No, like that.
Shall I move the last session, sir?
Yes, madam.
Shall I move the last session?
Yeah, sure. Once if you have nothing to discuss with madam, put in enter.
Okay. Shall I give the vote of thanks, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Good morning to one and all. This is the time to deliver a vote of thanks to today's resource person.
Kavita, just a question is there.
Okay, ma'am. Sorry. Okay.
No problem. Just wanted to know if there is any specific strategy to choose the antibiotics while isolating a new organism. No, you'd have to find out if it is effective against the other bacteria, and only after purifying the antibiotic and characterizing it, you will be able to know what compound that is, and to find out the pathogenicity in terms of the mode of action in terms of that particular. So we will not be having in isolation part. You will not be having any strategy. Just hoping for a new antibiotics from a new organism. That's it. Okay, Kavita.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Good morning to one and all. This is the time to deliver a vote of thanks to today's resource person, Dr. Sarika A.R., scientist, Kerala Biotechnology Commission, Trivandrum, for her time with us. I'm proudly to say that we too have completed our PhD in the same place, MS University, CMST, Tamil Nadu. She has delivered a wonderful information to all of us to enlighten our mind in the field of antibiotic resistant challenges and future perspectives. In this opportunity, I would like to express my sincere gratitude on behalf of management of Sir Syed Institute of Technical Studies, Taliparamba, and Department of Microbiology. Also, in this occasion, I extend our sincere gratitude to all the participants who are attending this program from various colleges. In this occasion, I also sincerely expressing my thanks to all the staff members of our department who are directly and indirectly involved for the success of this program. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you so much, Kavita. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Shall I leave?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Sir, Nizam, sir.
Sir, shall I leave, sir? Thank you so much, sir.
The mic is, I think, unmute.
Sir, unmute your mic, sir.
Hello, madam.
Hello,
Sorry, I
sir.
just muted.
Okay, sir.
After
Thank
this-
you so much, sir. Okay, sir.
After this COVID period, you can come to our college
Sure.
and visit our college.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. I'll
Give
be
a
happy to do
direct
that.
talk with direct
Yeah,
interaction with the students.
Interacting with the students. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, madam. And also, we'll contact you in case we
Sure.
need any help from your side.
Sure.
Research, project, etc. We'll contact you, madam.
Okay, sure, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you.
very
Thank
much.
you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.